Call to order the 932nd meeting and budget workshop number 2 of the directors of MSAD 27. Roll call.
Kelly, Shannon Lugden,
Here.
Katie Lubasser, David Susi, here, Tanya Bazid,
Here.
Toby Jandro,
Here.
Sarah Ashley,
Here.
and Maddie Morno.
Here.
Some adjustments to the agenda,
We
Ben?
do, so we'll be using the white agenda that I put on your table. There's 3 adjustments under new business retirement. We're gonna remove the second retirement, it is crossed out on your copy. Under new business resignation, we're gonna table that second resignation. And then under new business transfers, we're gonna add a number 1 transfer of JMG health teacher.
Okay, thank you. Period of public participation on items in this agenda. A lot of people here. Anybody have anything to say? No? Okay. Approval of minutes.
I would make a motion to approve with the correction of Mr. Dorman's name, spelling of his name. Oh, you are so good.
I know.
6A.
Yep. One too many O's.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Passes. Approval of financial statements. We have some statements here that Lucy's provided us.
Nothing concerning Lucy?
This time of year, it's pretty standard.
I'll make a motion to approve the February financial statements.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Superintendent, Ben.
So in your packet, you have the DOE snapshot data from school year 2022-23, last school year. So every spring, our students in grades 3 to 8 and grade 10 take the NUIA assessment, and it counts towards our annual assessment for the state, as well as all of the data the state collects from us throughout the school year, and they provided in a comprehensive snapshot. So I'd like to go over that snapshot with you, starting with the first page of that first packet. Looking at this one right here. That first page is just a snapshot of our data, of our district, the number of schools we have, the grades, the number of students, teachers, our chronic absenteeism level, and then per pupil spending. Going on to the next page is a breakdown of total enrollment. So you'll see how many males versus females, and then our racial ethnic student grouping numbers, as well as our economically disadvantaged counts and our students with disabilities count. And then at the bottom, you can see the spread across the grade levels. Again, this was for last school year, not this school year. If you have any questions, just stop me as I go. Page 3 is the per pupil spending. So it shows a breakdown of our funding sources for operating schools, and then our personnel and non-personnel spending, and then it has just a breakdown of all those as well. Our per pupil spending is $17,389, which is below the state average. The state average is $23,920. The following page after that is our teacher workforce. So 55% of our 55 teachers are classroom teachers. We have a multilingual learner teacher, and we have a Title I teacher. Then you see the degrees branched out. The majority of our teachers have a bachelor's degree. A few others have plus 15, plus 30, and then we have about 40% with a master's degree. Going on from there is our teacher experience, and they only report out on what they call inexperienced teachers. That's if we have teachers with 3 or less years experience. 9% of our teachers, or 7 teachers total, have 3 or less experience years. The rest are all experienced teachers. We have no teachers with emergency, targeted need, or transitional credentials, and we have no unqualified teachers. The page after that is our support staff count. So we have 41 support staff, what we call educational technicians. There's a breakdown of how many Ed Tech 1s, Ed Tech 2s, 3s, and then the library media educational technician. Following that is our chronic absenteeism counts. We are a little bit above state average at 24.7%. However, it has been going down steadily since COVID, which is good. This is something that we talk a lot about and have made efforts to try to, educate the families about the importance of not being absent. Chronic absenteeism is defined as missing school 20% or more of your school year is considered chronically absent, whether or not you're excused or unexcused. If you miss 20% of your school year, you're deemed chronically absent.
Ben?
Yep.
What's the number for the economically disadvantaged? Does it tell somewhere? Did I miss it?
Yes.
Okay, don't answer it. Don't worry about it now. I'll look and find it.
It's on page
44, I think.
It's on page 2.
Oh, it's on page 2.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I looked for it earlier and missed it completely. Oh, I meant like the amount of money.
Oh, the amount of money.
What
Like
threshold?
economically disadvantaged. What does that mean? Like,
Oh,
what's the salary,
I
the
don't know
annual
what the
income?
threshold is.
Okay.
I don't even know if anyone knows how, well, is Anne Marie here? Anne Marie might be able to. Economically disadvantaged, how is that flagged? How is somebody qualified for economically disadvantaged?
The state of Maine provides a table, and then that information is presented to, I'm gonna stand up so I can see everybody. The state of Maine provides the information. Where we do not collect free and reduced applications anymore, we cannot really ask what their income is. So the state provides us what we call an alternative document, and on that document provides a table. If you have one person in the family, you make this much, it qualifies. So all I ask is a yes or a no.
Okay.
Once I get that information, then I enter it into Power School, and then I upload it to the state, and then the state takes that information and submits it.
So it's
And I
just,
believe, and they use it for E-rate as well, and I believe, and Lucy can correct me, I believe we're at 60, 65, or we're between 60 and 70% when it comes to, and that's what they base it off of, our economic status.
okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Phew, I'm glad she was here. Then the bullying behavior and incidents of physical restraint and seclusion. It has a breakdown of what types of bullying have been reported that were substantiated, incidents of behavior that led to suspensions or expulsions in the middle columns, and then the incidents of restraint and seclusion in the last column. So those are, again, for the 2022-23 school year. Following that is our high school graduation rate. I don't know why our year 5 and 6 is suppressed and it didn't come out, but I will explain why we have a 4-year, 5-year, and a 6-year. Obviously, 4-year is the students that graduate after 4 years of high school, and how many percent of them graduated last year. We were at 100%. They have a 5 and 6 because there are special needs students that can come back for a 5th and a 6th year.
Okay.
They may not appear on your 4-year because they're not graduating, but they may appear on the 5 and 6. I'm assuming that our information is suppressed because we don't have that situation in the district. So we just had a 4-year report. I believe it's our third year in a row with 100% graduation rate, which is fantastic. The state average, I believe, is at 89%. Following that is our academic data from our NUIA assessment. This is the first year that the state reports out the percentage this way. Last year, when I presented this to you, they were using norm references, and it was a number that I couldn't explain to you of what that meant. This year, they're actually using the state expectation. Again, I can't define what the state expectation is, but it's based on our own state, not on the company of NUIA's norm reference. So we have 69.2% of our Fort Kent Elementary students at or above expectations for English language arts, and then you see the breakdown of female and male students. The following page is the math data for Fort Kent Elementary, 66.7% for all students, and then the breakdown of female and male. And again, this is grades 3 to 6 at Fort Kent Elementary School. It does not, we don't assess, or they don't collect the data for below grade 3. On the following page is the science data, and we're at 25.5% at or above state expectations for science. That is a low percentage, but when you look at the state totals, for some reason, the science assessment data is skewed this way for essentially every school. There are a couple that I viewed that come close to 50% or so, but it is a different assessment. The science assessment is it still an MEA assessment, the science one?
Yes, it is.
And it's not computer-based?
It is.
It is now computer-based, okay. So our score, 25.5%, is on the lower end for the science. For Valley Rivers Middle School, English Language Arts, 65.7% for all students, grades 7 and 8. For ELA, and then 51% for math, and 36.5% for science. And then our 10th graders last year at Community High School, English Language Arts, 71.2% for all students, 43.4% for math, and 32.1% for science.
So-
Go ahead, Shannon.
I know that you can't speak for all the teachers, but from what you said about the testing, is it sort of the opinion of you and the teachers that the students know more than they're showing? Or that more students know that minimum amount? Or are we really, when you look at, there's 63 students and 64% of them are not at or above expectations for science. That's a lot of students.
Yep, I am of the opinion that students, and my administrators or teachers in the room can correct me if I'm wrong, they check out during these tests. They do not give it.
So it's a test issue, more of a test issue than an actual learning issue.
So if you were to speak to our science teachers, what performance-based the students are giving them with performance to their assessments in the classroom probably do not match this. But I'm not a science teacher, so I can't speak.
Right.
But I do think that test fatigue is a real thing, and I don't think that students give it their 100%, especially on the NUIA assessment. When they see it multiple times a year for multiple years, by the time they get to grade 10, they're not too amped to take that test.
So are there assessments that our teachers are giving that could show us and the general public here? Is there a way for us to get behind that and speak with authority and say, no, this test, yeah, I see this data, but it's not accurate because X, Y, and Z?
a teacher can give you, I mean, can demonstrate, you know, their pre-test, post-test processes.
Right.
And see, you know, kind of growth happens between that. That's something that they could provide. Do we have a one-size-fits-all for everyone? No, it would look very different for all of them.
Right.
I think when we get into the next packet where we do some comparable to
Yeah,
other
I saw,
schools-
I mean, we look kind of normal, but that's scary too to me, like, jeez.
Yeah, so it's hard to say, it's hard to base something on a test or,
Right,
you know, we can so I'll give you an example. We were demonstrating some similar information at another school board, and a principal had provided some STAR assessment data that showed that his school was stronger in reading, English language arts than math. And then when we provided them the NUI assessment, it was the exact opposite. Two different tests showed two different strengths, so it's really hard to say. I think anytime we put too much onto one thing, it's hard to know what the truth is.
I would agree 100%. I don't want to hang the teachers over these, like, I didn't want to come off as that. I hope that's not.
Oh, no, but it's all valid, you know, and
Right.
it still gives us time to reflect on what we're doing and where maybe we need to improve things. I think science is a conversation, you know, that we're definitely going to have across the grade levels, because no matter if you're giving it your all or not, we shouldn't be, you know, showing scores this low in one content area when we can demonstrate it in the other content areas relatively well. Again, if I look at, you know, CHS, the math, you know, that's on the lower end, and I know that Mr. Collette and his team are having conversations around some curriculum adjustments for upcoming years, where we need to bring in some different type of math to bolster this up. So it is good information for us. I just don't know how much to put into it.
Yeah.
I think in the abstract, it's one thing, like it's just paper right here, but when we compare it to other schools, if we find ourselves significantly deficient compared to the average in the state of Maine, I think we need to, I think for me, that's what matters, is how we stack up in our own backyard.
Yeah, I mean, that matters less to me. I want to make sure that our students are learning what they're supposed to learn.
Well, no, but the
You know,
raw
like,
score
if
that,
this is what we say, this is what a student when they end sixth grade should know, and our students are only learning 30 to 40% of it, that's a problem. Now, if this data is skewed because the test shows they know this much, but really our teachers are saying, no, they know this material, they know, you know, 70 to 80% of it, awesome.
Right.
And I don't care, I mean, I do care about the other students in the state, but but what I really care about is the 63 that we're talking, you know, these 63, I want to make sure that as many of them are as educated as we can get them.
Yep.
And so, that's,
I was just drawing the distinction, this by itself doesn't mean much.
right, no, absolutely,
But compared to other
right,
communities, if we were the only ones scoring at this rate, we'd be having a different discussion. But I looked at this before, and we're
yeah,
all kind of in the same pack, which is
yep,
an interesting piece of data. And I'm with you, I think I think what would be ideal is if we ever get to the point where we could integrate, because I know we have curriculum, our curriculum is digital, like we can point out all of our goals for all of our students. It'd be really nice if we could somehow align them with our STAR data so we can see how we're doing as we go.
Yeah, and we can do some of that alignment, and Sharon can speak to that maybe at another meeting.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I have to, you know, say is that we are a proficiency-based district where students have to meet proficiencies in those standards in order to move on.
right,
So at some point or another, students have met proficiencies in order to go from grade 6 to grade 7, grade 7 to grade 8, with remediation, with acceleration.
right.
But they're meeting those standards in order to graduate, because they have to meet all of those graduation standards. But that's never gonna be demonstrated in this.
Ben, can I mention something about the MEA test? They
Sure.
just changed that 2 years ago, and it's a 3 one-hour sessions in a row. Last year, our middle school teachers really had a chance to look at the questions as they went, and found that we really weren't teaching enough physical and earth science at that level. So our scores were pretty, you know, low because of that. And since then, we have changed our curriculum to include, you know, more of the earth and physical science as well. And then even then, if you look at the NUIA, our scores are pretty decent. You know, those tests are about an hour each, an hour for math, an hour for, you know, the ELA. When you come take a look at the science, like I said, it's 3 one-hour tests back to back, you know, one day. It's a burnout test. You know, so even our juniors taking that are kind of, you know, they take the SATs that year, they're taking, you know, and then they're taking this at the end of the year. So I think it's just one of those things that, it's a long time to sit down.
I would sound a dissenting note. I don't see, I think these are lousy results. I'm concerned by them. I think they're lousy on the state level as well as the local level. I don't see that as a cause to blame anyone. Because, and unfortunately, very often when we find that there's a need for improvement, there's a rush to find who's responsible and who can we blame. I just think that's completely unhelpful. I think if we all got together and said, we can do better than this, because, for instance, those one-hour tests that you were telling us about, John, every student that took the test took that one-hour test. We're no different than them. I believe that our students here have the capacity to do much better than your average student because of the kind of community we have. Where there's, although we have, well, you know, we're all familiar with the problem with parental support generally. It's a lot better here in a lot of respects than it is a lot of places. And we have a foundation to build on here that many communities do not have. And I can't accept that we can't do better. And so when the discussion goes, well, this is as good as everyone else, and I guess that's all right, I would encourage us to go beyond that. Say, yeah, but we can actually excel in this community. We'll never excel if we don't set out to excel. Because it's hard, and it requires challenges, and it involves failure. You know, you try things out and they don't work, and you fail, you try it. So it's just tough, it's just hard. But we can do it, I really believe we can do it. And I think we have the teacher base to do it, I think we have the student base to do it, I think we have the administrative base to do it. I think we're not doing it because we don't set out to do it. And that's just my theory. But, so when I hear comments about this saying, well, you know, it's roughly according to state averages and so forth, I guess my reaction to that is, yeah, but we should be doing better than the state. And then when I look at the world at large, you know, on the state level, we're doing this, national level, the international level, we're 38th. Or is it 38th, Ben? 100? We're really, really low, the United States is. And our competition in Europe, in Finland, in South America, in Cuba, places like this, really beating us up pretty bad. Which suggests to me we can do better. Because I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with us. It's just we haven't figured out what the formula is. And so, and we'll never figure it out if we don't set out to find it. And the way you do that is by saying, yeah, we can do better, and we will do better. We'll just figure it out. But if we say, no, this is good enough, we'll never do better. So I understand that's a dissenting voice, but I feel very strongly about that. I really believe we can do better. And it's not because anybody's at fault. It's because we all collectively lack the vision, the belief that we can do it better.
And I think we have been doing better. So when we do look at the comparables, although we might be in the same company, I think our schools are edging out quite a few, even some of my other districts, which, you know, I think there is that capacity, and you're absolutely right, David. If we don't put that as our standard, I mean, we'll never even get anywhere near that. So that's absolutely right. There is some comparable data for states, just because I know that, Dave, you had asked about, you know, how are we doing as a state? So they give what's called the National Assessment of Education Progress, the NAEP, and they do that for grades 4 and 8 in a random sampling of schools across the state. And you can see how Maine has performed according to against the nation, and how historically we have been doing. So as of the 2022 test, you can see that the average score, 213 for Maine, 216 nationally, and that's down from 2013, where we were at 225 in Maine and the national was 221. That's for grade 4 reading. The grade 8 reading, a 2-point difference between the national and the state of Maine. National 259, state of Maine 257. And then in math, grade 4, the nation 235, 233 for Maine. And in 8th grade math, the same score for Maine and for the nation. But what you see in these trends is that the Maine line is going lower over the 10-year span. It's not remaining constant, whereas the nation seems to be more tabled off. So I think as a state, we need to be looking at what we're doing, what standards we're setting, and then how that translates to the local districts. Because I do know that, at least when I started teaching, Maine was, one of the tops in the nation for education. And I still think we are, but the data might not be showing that as strongly as it did back in those days. So that's the snapshot for our district. The comparables, I know that's a little bit small. I try to do my best to give you as much as I can. The statewide averages are that first page, so that you can get a sense across the state what the averages are. And then I provided some different comparable schools, starting with our Fort Kent Elementary. I have Madawaska Elementary, Dr. Levac Elementary. I have Van Buren Elementary. Sorry, the title fell on one page and then the data follows. Fort Street Elementary in Mars Hill. Zippel Elementary in Presque Isle. The Caribou Community School. And Easton Elementary School. The strongest data from those elementary schools does come from Easton Elementary. So I will be speaking to my colleague Mark Stanley and find out what their secret recipe is there, to have those strong scores. But I will say Fort Kent Elementary has some good data displayed on this, and aside from the science score, which we talked about, some really promising language arts and math scores, and again, room to improve for sure. And so that'll be discussions that we have as a leadership team on how we can move the needle on this. I did put Valley Rivers Middle School in there, but there's not a whole lot of middle schools to compare to, except for maybe the Caribou Community School, but that's a grade K-8 school. So Valley Rivers is kind of on an island by itself, but I followed with the high schools. I put Fort Kent, Madawaska, Wisdom, Van Buren, Central Aroostook, Presque Isle, Caribou, Easton, and then I threw in Bangor just as a comparable big, large school, mid-state, and then Portland, South Portland for downstate. And it does appear that CHS, although room for improvement, is performing well in the company of the schools presented. I don't know if that's helpful to some of the data you were looking for, Dave.
It sure is, and I thank you very much for that. I think it was very responsive to my request. It's exactly what I had in mind.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I know it's a lot to digest, so if you guys have follow-up questions after you get to, dive into this a little bit, I can absolutely follow up and provide you anything according to that. My second
We have
item,
funding that's dependent on these results?
no,
No, okay.
I mean, we have to take it, and
Right.
the funding would be determined on that.
But there's nothing like saying right now that if we don't figure out how to make our test scores show what our children, what we believe our children actually do know,
Right.
we're gonna lose funding.
No, in fact, they'll throw more money at you the worse you do
Oh, even better.
on the school.
Perfect.
They'll put some school improvement.
The scores
money.
keep going down.
Can't understand it.
Sadly, that's the truth.
How can we make those 3 hours more miserable?
They're more concerned with the participation rates. They want to make sure that our participation rates are, you know, are as close to 100% as possible. But we don't get any reward for doing well. March 15 Valley Unified Workshop. We had our workshop the last Friday, a few Fridays ago. It was a wonderful event. We had Carl Hooker, who's a guest speaker on many things in education, but he's really big on AI in education right now, and he really did a nice job setting the tone with the staff. That was it was non-confrontational. You know, he understands that in that room there's pro AI people and negative AI people, and you know, and everywhere in between. So, and his message was good. You know, be where you're at, but let's make sure that we understand that this isn't going away. It's going to be part of all of our lives moving forward. The AI today is the dumbest AI that we'll ever see in our lifetime. It's only going to multiply times a trillion over the next, you know, years. So it was good for some staff, especially those staff who were really reluctant to even have the topic. And they came out saying that was really good workshop. The breakouts for the day between Carl and our other guest speaker were well done, and staff, you know, got to do a lot of great things. They got some great tools. I mean, more tools than I've ever seen delivered at a workshop, where staff could, you know, go and try out different things. They had some activities at the end where staff were encouraged to use the technology. I had about 55 requests to buy all this new software at the end of it, so we said, hold on, let's put the brakes and let's just, you know, let's think about this carefully. But it was really, really great workshop, and it was nice to have all the Valley Unified schools together. We hadn't done that since pre-COVID, so that was wonderful. Any questions on the workshop? And then my final report out to you is on the outdoor learning grant. There were 113 applications, and they awarded 65 grants. All of the grant applicants were put into 3 groups. Group 1 was 0 to 55,000 requests. Group 2 was 55 to 100,000, and Group 3 was 100,000 to 797,000. Of the requests in Group 3, 19 were selected, and the point totals were anywhere from 95 to 80. Our application was 79 points. We were 1 point away from being funded. We were the next one. And I will say that there was a school project, I believe it was South Portland, got that 797,000 grant. I think they were a little selfish, because if they would have had a little smaller, then we probably would have been funded. But we're not getting funded under this round. So we're a little bit disappointed, but we understand that there's a process that needs to be followed. Other than that, I have your administrator reports from Mr. Doucette, Mr. Anderson, and Anne Marie, and they are all here if you have questions for them.
Any questions for our administrators? We have 3 reports here. Mr. Doucette, Mr. Anderson, and Anne Marie.
Mr. Anderson, I'm skimming through this again because I'm hoping that you didn't answer my question in here, and I just didn't read carefully enough. The local businesses, have you gotten any back yet? For the, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have actually.
Yeah?
And we've got a couple businesses that, you know, responded to that saying that they thought this was wonderful. They were really happy that it was becoming a community thing, and looking forward to bringing tickets out to their kids that go in there.
And have they passed out some of these, the cards?
I I'm not sure.
Okay.
They're the same card as the ones that went home.
So do they come back, like if a kid gets one, if a kid's out at Shop and Save and they get one,
Yep.
the kid brings it in,
He brings it in, gives it to his teacher, the teacher punches their in-class card,
right?
and then they turn that card back into the office so we can recycle.
That's awesome, that's cool.
There were some given out at the ski field the other day.
Nice,
Mike was giving some out, yeah.
nice. That's cool.
Any other questions? Thank you all for your updates. All right, new business.
Under items of information, retirements, we have one retirement. You should have a letter in your packet from Kelly Sue Pitt. Kelly is announcing her retirement after 32 years in education. She's been with us for 18 of those years. She's thanking Mr. Neto and Ms. Jill Kelly for their guidance, and she's, really respectful of the opportunity. And so we're pleased to celebrate this retirement with Kelly Sue.
I'll make a motion to approve the retirement of
Thank
Kelly
you,
Sue.
Sarah. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
The second one was taken out. That brings us to resignation. We have a resignation from Jake Lavoie, and Jake, his last day was on March 14. Jake did spend some time in Japan before coming back home and working with us over the past year, but has returned to Japan. And he actually got the position that he had before. He was there before, so he goes right back into his role.
Make a motion to approve the resignation of Jake LeBlanc.
No second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
We're gonna table the second resignation that was on there. Transfer, this was an addition. You'll see a transfer notification letter from me to Michelle Charnick. Michelle is our JMG specialist for half of the day, and then she works at the tech center with the 8th grade career education, teaching at the tech center. And we're having some changes at the tech center where we have a part-time person who's doing the health that took another job. So we have a long-term sub in that health component. Michelle is health certified and has expressed interest to do that to Mr. Lavoie. And then Mr. Coletta and Mr. Doucette felt there was a need here to bring some additional health education. Right now, I believe we do it for a quarter, and they want to aim for half a year of health education. And we would need Michelle to do that. So JMG is going to find a new specialist for that role. They're revamping everything at JMG, and I plan to bring some information to you next meeting because Mr. Karen and I are going to an ELO workshop, I guess, on Thursday. ELO stands for for Extended Learning Opportunities, and that's the direction the JMG is going into. So we'd like to have you, so I'd like to approve this, this transfer from Michelle to be able to do that.
In a motion.
Do we need a motion for the transfer?
We can do it just
Just for funsies?
just for fun.
Huh.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Nice. Any discussion
No.
on our
Oh,
fake
sorry.
motion? All those in favor?
It's a fun.
Funsies.
New hires. Why don't we just wait on this and do it later in the meeting?
Yeah.
Since so our guests don't have to wait anymore, we'll do it now. So we do have some new hire recommendations. The first one is our CHS VRMS Dean of Students. I had the privilege of leading this interview committee. Sarah participated as our board representative, and we interviewed three people. We had 7 applicants, we interviewed 3, and in the end, we had a unanimous determination to recommend Mr. Don Chenard. Don has worked in this district his entire career, 32 years, and he wowed us during the interview, and it's my extreme pleasure to recommend Mr. Chenard.
I'll move to approve Don Chenard as the CHS BR MS Dean of Students. And I'll second.
Any discussion? I'm gonna say, I was in your classroom your first year.
First year.
And it saddens me a little to see you move, but I'm glad we're still gonna have you.
And I'll say that I feel like leaving the classroom now will be the best time. I feel like I'm at the top of my game, teaching a wonderful group of juniors.
Yeah.
I'm co-teaching in a model that's working beautifully and experimenting with technology, and kids are learning, and there's no better time for me to step out and look back and say, that was my teaching career.
Well,
So,
thank you for what you've done.
yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
All right, all those in favor?
Second recommendation is for the technology coordinator position. The interview committee was led by Mr. Peter Karen, and they too had selected 3 candidates to interview, and in the end, their committee was also unanimous in their recommendation for Mitch Daigle as technology coordinator.
I'll make a motion to approve Mitch Daigle as the technology coordinator.
Thank you, Sarah.
Second.
Thank you.
And he has no ideas at all about, some great ideas he has none to share.
Shortest interview on record. It's like, wow, 5 minutes.
Good, welcome aboard. All right, all those, any discussion?
So does that mean you won't be teaching at the tech center?
Sadly, I will be leaving my position at the tech center. So all those applicants you got, please send them to Mr. LeBois' way. He is a little nervous about this year, how that's gonna go, but we'll find somebody good for him. So
Thank you.
I'm very excited to get started. No ideas, none whatsoever. It's not like
Perfect.
AI is gonna change education. Not like technology doesn't drive anything nowadays. So it's gonna be easy.
So, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Our third position is for our physical education health teacher. This committee was led by Mr. Coletta, and they interviewed several candidates as well. And in the end, they were unanimous as well to recommend Mr. Scott Pelletier, who comes back to us after some time at SAD 33.
I'll make the motion to approve Scott Pelletier as CHS VRMS physical education health teacher.
Thank you. Any discussion? Welcome back, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
All those in favor?
Fourth one is actually one that I should have brought to you last meeting, and this was a recommendation that was given to me before last meeting. So I have the recommendation email from Mr. Peter Sose. He and Ricky Labby are recommending Rodney Dion as the evening custodian, and Rodney's been doing that work since the recommendation as a sub. So that's the recommendation for that position.
Make a motion to approve Rodney Dion as the CHS VRMS night custodian.
Thank you, Sarah.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
And the final one is for an FKES Educational Technician 1-on-1. And Jill Kelly and Mr. Anderson are recommending Maria Flores as the Special Education Technician 1-on-1. Maria has been subbing in that role and has been doing a very good job, and they had no reservation to recommend her for the position.
Fantastic.
Make a motion to approve Maria Flores as special education technician one-on-one at Fort Kent Elementary School.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Before we go on to the coaching approvals, I want to talk about the school psychologist opening. That opening has been with us for over a year now, and we're simply not getting any bites. We do have a plan in the works. One of our employees is on a track to hopefully become a school psychologist, but that's several years out. I believe it's 3 years out. So in the meantime, Ms. Jill Kelly did have a recommendation, because that is a funded position that we're not tapping into, and she has a need. Right now, the need to conduct a lot of our evaluations, especially in the speech language realm, has become cumbersome. And so we actually have 2 contracted services in order to stay afloat. We have one with 2 independent school pathologists in addition to our own hire, and who has maxed out on her caseload. So Jill is recommending that we change that posting from a school psychologist to a speech and language pathologist. So we don't contract those services, and we actually hire our own if we are able to do so. I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but that's the recommendation that Jill has.
Sorry, Ben, I swear I was listening. So we want to change, we have an open listing for a school psychologist.
Yep.
We want to convert it over to a speech pathologist from there. Are we giving up on the school psychologist?
No, we're just tabling it for a time being where one of our own can get there.
Mhm. Okay.
There are school departments across the state that cannot find a school psychologist. We had a unicorn that fell in our lap when we had Manuel, but it's very rare. I believe the only school district in Aroostook County that has one is Prescott.
And we needed a speech pathologist for some time as well, right? We've been contracting out on that.
Yep. Yeah, Amelia's caseload has been maxed out for the past 3 years, so we contract in order to supplement, and it's just not sustainable.
I can say from my experience, like, speech pathology is really, really important, especially with some of the younger kids, where you can identify problems before they become acute.
Yep.
So I'm full support of that.
So does this involve creating a speech pathologist position and kind of, for the time being at least, putting to bed the school psychologist position?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's already a position you have budgeted for, so it's not an add-on, it's just shifting. And probably not the same salary rate as well.
So would that mean in the future, once we do have a school psychologist, would that mean we have 2? Or would we get rid of that speech pathologist, or?
It would be built into the LE grant, so Jill would be able to speak about how the funding works for all that
Okay.
as well. But I know that it shouldn't be, Lucy, correct me if I'm wrong, it shouldn't be a local cost if it's falling under the special ed umbrella.
If it's special ed umbrella, yes, it's a local
Right.
cost, yeah. And right now, that's where I have the psychologist budgeted.
Right.
The local entitlement
The local entitlement.
is a grant, it's not local cost.
So the speech pathologist would not be local cost?
Sometimes it's cost share
Okay.
between the grant and the local cost, so depending on the salary range.
But I think even aside from that, if I'm not mistaken, from my experience, we're really short on speech services,
Oh,
period.
yes.
It's not even close to meeting the needs of the students currently with just Amelia.
No, we have, like I said, we're contracting with 2 individual contractors outside of Amelia.
And they're not free.
They're not free.
Do you need a motion, or just up for discussion?
I would like, yeah, sure. I would like your
Is this
support.
another for funsies? 'Cause I don't know how many.
I think
things
this
we
is a
need
good
to
for
ask.
reals.
I would like a motion.
I would make a motion to hire a speech and language pathologist,
If we can find.
if we can find one.
Yes.
Or to open the search for a speech and language pathologist.
Thank you.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right, spring sports coaching approvals. Mr. Nichols has populated the spring sports approval list. The majority of the coaches are returning. We do have a new varsity softball assistant, a new VRMS baseball coach, and a new track and field coach. And we're still looking for a VRMS softball and softball assistant, as well as a varsity track assistant.
Are those, are assistant positions based on the size of the team, or is it just based on?
It's
Okay.
based on the numbers.
So if they
of-
get over a certain threshold,
Yeah, yeah. And because every student in VRMS wants to play every sport, we typically have a lot of assistants for VRMS.
yeah.
As we still don't even include our sixth graders, right? Do we? And so we have high numbers with seventh and eighth graders.
That's great, though.
You don't
Yeah.
include sixth graders just for spring sports?
We haven't,
Hmm?
our numbers have been really high,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the spring sports coaches.
Sorry, I was out in space.
Yeah, that's all right, I made the
Make a
motion.
second.
I'll go with,
For
I'll second.
realsies.
For realsies.
And I'll second
Any discussion?
Shannon's motion.
All those in favor?
Snow removal bid and trash removal bid.
You currently have the summary in front of you. The snow removal bid, we had one bid. For this current year, for this next year, he's bidding the same amount as this current year, so no increase in cost. There had been an adjustment that we had approved last spring for this current year, because he had incurred a lot of extra costs in fuel. But he turned around and bid the same price, the lower price for the next year. So no increase in cost for snow removal for next year.
Didn't give us a
JBBC
discount for how little snow we had?
I don't know, I hope he has it the next 3 years as well. So JBBC was the only bidder, that's Jim Bouchard. And I can go over the trash one as well at the same time. The next sheet is your trash and garbage removal. The only bidder was Keith Daigle, who is currently providing us the service anyway. Slight increase of about 18% for this current year. However, we also included an additional dumpster for him to pick up, so the extra cost will cover the dumpster. And we're very satisfied with both the services of these current companies.
I'll entertain a motion to accept both of these bids if someone's so bold.
So moved.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Both of these are approved. So, when I read the headline on this, it says consideration to forgive one student day.
Oh.
And what I heard was consideration to forgive one student day, like it's a holiday, like we're gonna forgive one of these students for all the bad things they did this year. Like an absolution, it's awesome.
Got Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah. Senior skip.
This last snowstorm was my fault, by the way. So Mr. Neto tells me. Because just a few days before, we were having an admin meeting and we were talking about the first snow day and how it's pushed everything back one day. And I didn't feel at that time it was appropriate to come ask you to forgive a student day because instead of ending school on Thursday, the students would be ending on Friday. So I felt that, there's no need. Now with the second snow day, that last student day rolls over to the following Monday. And we're not gonna have a whole lot of students that come to school on that day for an early release. So what we're asking you to consider is, because the state statute says we have to have 175 days, we have 176 days. I'm asking that you forgive that last student day, allow them to end on June 14. barring any more snow days. And so they would end on that day. The staff would still have to make up their 2 days as workshop days the following Monday and Tuesday. So that's the ask.
I would make a motion to approve the elimination of the 176th student day.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
I'm telling everybody that
It's because of you?
it's
You're personally responsible.
My kids had already told me they weren't gonna go anyway. I was like, really? Okay.
As a side note, that was very challenging last year because that's the first day of the pitch soccer camps.
Mm.
So all of the kids ended up, they actually, the coaches from Dutch Soccer Academy were nice enough to push their start time back so the kids could still make that day. But that was a real challenge for all of us with kids in that, so,
Mhm.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, we're not out of the woods yet because this is northern Maine, so.
Yeah.
It's
That's this weekend.
Great.
So I'd like to take H out of order and put it after the budget workshop, if that's okay.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, all right. So you get the packet in front of you, and the very top sheet of changes is changes since the last meeting and since the first read. So at the first read, we had total expenses totaling $15,548,920. There's a list of changes that we've made since then. So we had frontline education recruiting software that had been previously funded by grant. Same with the next line down, the math subscription, previously funded by grant. So those 2 items needed to be added to the budget. And then the snow removal change, I had budgeted a little more than what the bid came in as. Ed techs, we have several ed techs that went from either ed techs 2s to ed tech 3s or 1s to 2s, so I had to factor those in. We anticipate being able to move some of the expenses that I planned for this in the budget for the pre-K expansion. This currently, we had a grant, and since the first read, or before, just slightly before the first read, they had let us know that they were extending that grant for another year.
Oh, nice.
So I was able to move the expenses. Whether or not that fully transfers, I'll find out shortly. Changing in staffing, so the people that you approved at tonight's meeting for new positions are factored in here. Technology, we always try to keep in the budget the replenishments. So this particular one for iPads for grades K to 1 are factored in. Reduced by 1 ed tech attrition. Due to attrition, 1's leaving, and there's no need to replace that position. We will reshuffle internally. Miscellaneous adjustments and prices. So as we go along the budget, some of the quotes that we initially got when we started building the budget, they come in with a renewed quote, so I factor them in. And then technology, we have a retiring technician, and we're trying to figure out how we're gonna backfill. So this is one, I wanna make sure that we have enough funds in the budget. And actually, I think next read, I will have to add a little more, because I figured out at 4:30 today that I had forgotten something, so. So the second read, we're now at 15,451, so a reduction of 48,000 in expenses from the first read. On the other side of the budget, we actually had some updated funding revenue budget numbers as well. So because we're planning a certain replenishment, the MILTI funding for it, the MILTI is the laptop funding from the Department of Education. We're anticipating receiving an additional 11,000 than what I had originally planned. The items that we're replenishing, we will be able to sell the older models, anticipating 10,750 as a low number, but a conservative number for that. And pre-K registration was last week or the week before, and we anticipate 6 additional pre-K students from tuitioning towns that I had not factored in it as well. Until the pre-K registration is done, I factor in 0. Once we have numbers, I factor in what who are registered. So total change, reduction in local funds needed at this point would be $128,000 less, which would mean a reduction in mill of 0.32. So that if you look at and the sheets are the same format as normal, the very last sheet in length in the legal size with the kind of orange brown color shows what the mill rate would be if we were to take this to referendum today, and we would be an increase of 0.86 mil. So Fort Kent would be an increase of less than 12%. New Canada, St. Francis, St. John would be an increase of less than 9%, and Wallagrass would be an increase of about 14%. And the difference is because of their valuations and their student changes in turn. So that's our current snapshot at second read.
Thank you, Lucy.
We are anticipating word from Anthem Blue Cross of what their, I think they're meeting tonight or this week on what their maximum rate increase will be. And it's not until mid-April that we actually find out what our actual district rate increase will be. So I'm hoping that that will come in and reduce this a little bit more.
I wish I owned a business that calculated its maximum rate increase and then told you you don't pay it. I'm gonna give everyone a couple more minutes to look at it. If you're ready, just let me know, but I'm gonna let folks take a minute.
You can take these home with you if you would like, as long as it's not ready to share publicly, of course. But there's nothing in there that is confidential to the point that you can't share.
I think it's interesting when we're looking through this now, and we looked through our test scores earlier, and we are testing in the same, but with about the same results as the rest of the state, but we're spending, what, $6,500 per student less. I think that says something about our teachers and Lucy being able to balance our budget. But we are staying on par.
So those 7 inexperienced teachers, it's gonna change pretty quickly here.
Yep. Yeah. And it's interesting because more new teachers are not following a traditional pipeline anymore, you know.
Kind of laterally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's very small, although we've had some recent graduates here at CHS that went to a teacher preparation program. I think over the last couple of years, we might have sent 6 or 7. So hopefully they're coming back to apply for our vacancies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I suspect we're gonna have a wave coming here at some point.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, Shannon, the state number that's there is the total cost per pupil. the state, the number that you see on our mill rate sheet is our local cost per pupil. So the cost per, our actual cost per pupil, including state and local share, or whatever, is,
Oh, I was going with the numbers on the front of the testing sheet. Are those
the
not the same?
17,389,
Yeah.
that's the,
That's different.
no, that's the calculated, that's the one that in 22-23 statewide.
Okay.
Yeah, that's based on all our reporting, yeah.
Okay.
But the, I thought you were looking at the amount on the local state share.
Any
Good point.
questions, any other questions for Lucy or Ben?
We had set aside money at some point, the facilities committee, for like rainy day project type stuff. Remember? My memory is awful.
We have,
We used that for something?
we, in the budget, we do have a pot of money that we, instead of naming all the projects,
Mhm.
we're setting aside a pot of money. So, last year was 100,000.
Right,
Cost increases, I've actually upped that to, I believe, 120,000 in this budget, might even be 140. Other than that, we did set aside some funds, but I think it was for reducing tax assessments, not necessarily facilities
facilities,
projects.
okay.
But I'll double check for next read.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember the,
That was a couple of years ago, right?
Yes,
that was
yeah.
with
I-
Keith.
And remember Keith was here, I remember this, yeah. Because there was a real debate on how much we keep, how much we lower taxes by,
Right.
and I think everyone
That's
was.
when we had additional state funding.
Right.
Yeah, and that was involving like something with a hole out back, and it was like, it was, I don't know why it was tied in with like the drain in the backyard or
There was-
something.
There was, well, I think there was projects that like, it would be nice to fund as opposed to try to get them done between end of school and the end of the fiscal year.
And that's why we changed the way that we're asking for money in the facilities section.
Right.
Because if we ask for a specific project and then we're unable to do it, it may not be feasible. However, if I give the facilities department, say, hey, you've got $100,000, plan your year, if they're planning a project that can't now be done, they can use those funds to do something different.
Right.
It makes it easier.
Yep.
And there's oodles of projects that need done.
Well, and
The list is endless.
so one of the things that I've been thinking of is we talk about in this building, you know, plumbing and electrical. And I guess my thinking is, at what point do we wait for, you know, a hall to break loose before we attack some of that stuff? Or does it make sense to try to pick away at it? Can you pick away at it, or is it a overhaul? I don't know the answer to it, but it would be nice to not be scrambling when something does happen, which it will, because I feel like we're on borrowed time with some of those things.
Yeah. We do have school revolving renovation funds that were just approved, so we have a project for replacing a few doors and controlled access points for
Mhm.
both of the buildings.
Mhm.
That will be the top priority project, and then the critical ones are in school. Once we have that lined up, because there's only so many workers in the area.
Right, right.
That's one of our
That's-
challenges.
Yes, that's a huge issue.
The DOE is doing a facilities study right now, so they're sending consultants all throughout the state to walk through every school. And we had a gentleman here last week, came through our schools. It's not an inspection, but just, you know, walking with, so he walked with Ricky, and he basically said, what's ugly? What are you nervous about? So some of those things they talked
Hmm.
about. And so they're doing that statewide in an effort to change the school construction funding process. Right now, you know, they're funding 7-8 projects every 3-4 years. It's not doing anything to change the state of, you know, what they'd like to look at is more renovation funds where, you know, if you need to replace a wing or you need to replace plumbing, and, you know, very
Right.
specific, rather than tearing down schools and rebuilding schools, target what schools need. So we're hopeful that maybe that'll help.
And it would be nice if they were a little bit more open to what do you need, as opposed to, okay, you have to target whatever
Right.
someone somewhere thinks is
Yep.
important, and if we don't need new windows, then you know, you
Right.
don't get any money this year.
Right.
As opposed to, we have electrical and plumbing things that,
The model.
we just keep hoping that that's not their big one next year.
The model's really weird. I was down in Augusta for something when Frenchville was talking about rebuilding after the fire. And it was shocking to me, the relative youth of some of the schools that were on the list to be replaced.
Yep.
So it's kind of this really weird situation where it's like a spoiled child with a device.
Mm.
You'll replace their device if they treat it badly. But if you treat it well, they're gonna have like the iPhone 3 forever. And we have the iPhone 3 forever, because we've taken care of our device here. And the schools that just trash their schools get a new school. It's really a straight, I think that's what they're looking to address, is that problem where, why don't we invest in the people who are doing the right thing and keeping their schools, you know, up to snuff?
Yeah.
I was really surprised at the age of some of the schools that were needing full replacement.
Mm.
I mean, built in my lifetime.
It's kind of like giving extra funding for poor test scores.
Yeah,
Yes.
right, yeah.
Yes, there's some interesting metrics there. I think they're all doing very bad at their math components. We don't teach economics anymore, do we?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna, any questions for Lucy? Dave, I'm gonna call it, sorry.
You're gonna call what?
We're gonna move on to the next thing, you're still
No,
looking.
go ahead.
All right. So we were supposed to go into executive session. Before we do that, I want to take a moment to, Kelly's not here, so I'm going to thank her in absentia. Kelly stepped up and agreed to take a spot on the school board when there was a vacancy when Keith left. Kelly came forward and gave it a whirl. I talked to her a little bit. It's a lot of work for her to manage that, and a couple small kids, and a dad who's working in the woods. And I mean, I know you're working with very similar situations, so I'd like to first thank everyone who's doing it despite the difficulty, the people who are here. Kelly, you're not here. Thank you for taking a shot at it. It was commendable to do something that you hadn't tried before and was outside of her comfort zone, so I want to thank Kelly for that. And then Sarah, provided the whole town doesn't go out and vote for her, written in as leaving us, and I want to just take a moment to thank Sarah for her
moving now.
service. It really is appreciated, Sarah. It really is. You've been a pleasure to work with, even though you're a pain in my ass sometimes.
It's been a pleasure.
Or maybe
to-
because you're a pain in my ass.
Yes, I think that's probably more appropriate, yeah.
So thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sarah.
So, and on that note, I'd ask Ben a question, and Sarah, you're gonna love this. I asked what the most we could pay somebody to do contract work was, we've ever paid somebody to do like coaching work was. And the reason for that question is I'd like for us to consider proposing a change in the rules to permit board members to do contract work that isn't, to do work like coaching work. Because right now, the way am I spilling the beans by saying why you wanna leave?
No. I don't think that's
Sarah wants to
right.
coach skiing because that's what she loves, and I'd love to see Sarah coach skiing, and I'd also like to see Sarah stay on the board, but they're mutually exclusive. So I was thinking of seeing if maybe we could see if we could draft some legislation that would permit an exemption for people who aren't contract employees, like our teachers or our administrators, somebody who's on a fixed, limited, just like a coach, or on a stipend type payment. Because I don't think that the conflict is that acute, right? And they can easily bow out of that particular vote, because it's such a tight little place where there's a conflict. It seems silly that we're excluding really engaged members. I'm looking at what Josh provided us, of people who are coaching. Like, these are engaged members of our community, and I hate to exclude them because they made the mistake of coaching baseball. Like, that seems foolish to me. So I was gonna posit this to Ben, and I guess I'll float it out there. It's not really on the agenda, but I think it's worth investigating, and I'm guessing other school districts probably feel very similar. It seems silly to exclude somebody because they're coaching skiing from being on the school board, so.
Yeah.
I mean, they took a leap a few years ago when they allowed for volunteerism, right? Because before that, school board members couldn't even volunteer, and then they changed that, so I'm hopeful there's momentum there.
I imagine as long as they're not collective bargaining, I don't feel so bad about it. Like, I can understand if you have to vote on your own contract, that would be bad, but I don't see any problem with coaches. So I'd like to, I'll talk to Ben about it, see if we can get somebody to draft something up from Drummond Woodson. I'm sure it would be great. All right, with that, I I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. Second.